I don't even know where to begin. I feel like my entire life has been a lie, and I don't know what to do. I, 36M, have been married to my wife, Jessica, 34F, for 8 years. We have 2 kids together, Liam, 7, and Emma, 5, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought we had a pretty solid marriage. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never suspected anything was wrong. Jessica has always been a night owl. She works in marketing, and sometimes she has late-night calls with clients. That's just how the industry is, I guess. I never thought twice about it, until recently when I noticed that she'd become a little too secretive. It started small. She'd take her calls outside instead of in the office. She'd get a little defensive when I asked who she was talking to. Sometimes, she'd smile at her phone like a teenager texting her crush. I told myself I was being paranoid, but then I started waking up in the middle of the night to find her missing from bed. One night, I got up to get some water and saw her standing in the kitchen, whispering into her phone. I stayed in the shadows and listened. I couldn't hear much, but I definitely caught her saying, "I miss you too." My stomach dropped. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation. Maybe she was talking to her sister or an old friend. Maybe I had misheard. But something inside me knew better. So, like an idiot, I did something I never thought I'd do. I ordered a small audio recorder online. It was cheap, barely the size of a flash drive. I hid it behind the coffee maker, right where she always stood during her late-night calls. I told myself I'd listen to the recording in the morning, just to ease my mind. Maybe she was planning a surprise for me, or maybe I'd realize I was overreacting. I wish that were the case. The next morning, after she left to drop off the kids, I grabbed the recorder with shaking hands and plugged it into my laptop. The file was short, just about 20 minutes long. I hit play. The first few minutes were just background noise, her shuffling around, pouring a drink. Then, her voice came through. "I know, baby," she whispered. "I wish I could see you more too." My heart pounded. "I hate sneaking around like this," she continued. "But he would never understand. I love him, but not in the way I love you." I paused the recording. My vision was blurry. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped my coffee. My wife, was telling another man that she loved him. I forced myself to keep listening. "I don't know how much longer I can keep up this double life," she said. "It's exhausting." A deep male voice responded, but I couldn't make out the words. "I know," she whispered, "but I can't just leave. Not yet. He's a good father, and I don't want to hurt him." I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to be sick. My wife wasn't just cheating on me, she was living a double life. And she wasn't planning on stopping. I have no idea what to do next. Should I confront her? Should I gather more proof? Should I pretend I don't know until I have a plan? I feel like a complete fool. After listening to that recording, I spent the entire day in a haze. I couldn't focus on work. My mind was spinning in 1,000 directions at once. Every memory of our relationship replayed in my head like a cruel movie. But now, everything felt tainted. Every smile, every hug, every "I love you," was any of it even real? When Jessica came home that evening, I acted like nothing was wrong. I hated myself for it, but I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed time to think. She walked in with her usual cheerful energy, kissed me on the cheek, and asked about my day. It was so casual, so normal, and it made me sick. How could she act like this after what I heard? I watched her closely that night. Every time her phone buzzed, I wondered if it was him. Every time she smiled, I wondered if she was thinking about him. At one point, she went to the bathroom and left her phone on the couch. My heart was racing. I wanted to grab it, open it, find the messages, and see exactly what was going on. But I didn't. Not yet. I was terrified of what I'd find. After the kids went to bed, Jessica poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the couch next to me. She was scrolling through her phone, completely relaxed, like nothing in the world was wrong. I couldn't take it. I excused myself and went to our bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. Should I confront her? Should I pretend I don't know and gather more evidence? I didn't even know who the guy was. I didn't know how long this had been going on. And worst of all, I didn't know how to protect my kids from the fallout. I went back and forth in my head for what felt like hours. One part of me wanted to storm into the living room, throw the recording in her face, and demand answers. But another part of me knew that I wasn't ready. If I confronted her without a plan, it could blow up in my face. What if she denied everything? What if she turned it around on me? What if she took the kids and left? At around midnight, I heard her get up. My heart started pounding. I knew where she was going. I waited a few minutes, then quietly slipped out of the bedroom. There she was, standing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her tone was soft, almost tender. My stomach turned. I wanted to burst into the room and catch her in the act, but I didn't. Instead, I slipped back into the bedroom and grabbed the recorder. The next morning, after she left to take the kids to school, I sat down at my laptop and listened. "I miss you too," she whispered. "I wish we could just be together without all this sneaking around." There was a pause, and then the man's voice came through. It was clearer this time. "Soon," he said. "We just have to be patient. He won't suspect anything if we're careful." Me. They were talking about me. "I know," Jessica replied. "I just hate lying to him. He's a good guy. He doesn't deserve this." "Then why the hell are you doing it?" I wanted to scream. There was a long pause, and then she said something that broke me. "I love you, Ryan." Ryan. That was his name. Ryan. I paused the recording and leaned back in my chair. My entire body was shaking. My wife was in love with another man, and his name was Ryan. I had no idea who he was, but I was going to find out. At that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I needed more information. I needed to know who Ryan was, how long this had been going on, and what their plans were. I wasn't going to let her blindside me. If she wanted to leave me, fine. But I was going to be ready. That night, while Jessica was putting the kids to bed, I did something I never thought I'd do. I unlocked her laptop. She always kept it logged in, and I knew the password. She had told me years ago, back when we trusted each other. I opened her email. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely type. I searched for Ryan. And there it was. Dozens of emails. Some recent, some from years ago. My heart sank. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't some random guy she met a few months ago. This had been going on for years. I clicked on the most recent email, dated 2 days ago. Subject: I can't wait to see you. I couldn't bring myself to read the whole thing, but one line stood out. Just a few more weeks, and we'll finally be free. Free. Free from me. I closed the laptop and sat there in silence. My wife was planning to leave me. She wasn't just cheating, she was making plans to start a new life with another man. And I had no idea how much time I had left. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Jessica's slow, steady breathing beside me. How could she sleep so peacefully while planning to rip our family apart? My mind was spinning. A few more weeks, and we'll finally be free. What the hell did that mean? Was she planning to tell me soon? Was she going to blindside me with divorce papers? Or was she planning something worse, taking the kids and leaving before I even knew what hit me? By the time morning came, I had made a decision. If she was planning to leave me for Ryan, I needed to know everything. I needed to know who he was, where he lived, and how deep this thing really went. So, I did what any man in my position would do. I started investigating my own wife. The emails only told me so much. I knew his first name, but that was it. No last name, no contact info, just his messages and vague plans. But I did notice something. A few of the emails mentioned meeting up at a hotel. The Lancaster Inn. I checked my bank statements. Jessica and I had joint accounts, but she also had a separate credit card for personal expenses. She always said it was for things like birthday gifts, hair appointments, and random online shopping. I pulled up the most recent statement and scrolled through the charges. And there it was. Lancaster Inn, $189.50. The charge was from last weekend. While I was home with the kids, Jessica was checking into a hotel with him. My stomach twisted in knots. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. I needed to keep going. That night, after she fell asleep, I took her phone. I knew her passcode, she never changed it. I felt sick even touching it, but I had no choice. I went straight to her messages. Nothing. No text from Ryan. No suspicious names. No secret apps. Either she deleted everything, or they weren't texting. Then I checked her call log. There it was. A number she called almost every night. No name, just a random contact saved as a single emoji, wine glass. Wine. Like the wine she drank every night while talking to him. I copied the number and sent it to my own phone. I was tempted to call it right then and there, but I stopped myself. I needed a plan. The next morning, after Jessica left for work, I did a reverse phone lookup on the number. The results came back fast. Ryan Carter. And then I saw his job title. Senior Manager, Franklin and Company. Marketing. Marketing. The same industry Jessica worked in. My blood ran cold. She wasn't cheating with some stranger. She was cheating with a coworker. I searched for Ryan Carter on LinkedIn. His profile popped up immediately. He was around my age, maybe a couple of years younger. Dark hair, perfect teeth, that fake businessman charm that I immediately hated. He wasn't just some random guy. He was the type of guy who knew how to manipulate people, how to say the right things, how to make someone like Jessica fall for him. And the worst part? His office was 10 minutes from our house. I gripped my phone so tight I thought it would shatter. My wife wasn't just sneaking around, she was screwing the guy right under my nose. I felt like an idiot. A pathetic, clueless idiot. I needed to know when she was seeing him next. That night, while she was in the shower, I checked her calendar on her laptop. She always kept her schedule open so we could coordinate kid stuff. And there it was. Friday, work dinner, 7:30 p.m., Lancaster Inn. Another hotel meeting. Another night of lying to my face. And this time, I was going to catch them. I wasn't going to confront her at home. Not yet. Not when she could gaslight me, twist the story, or make me look like the bad guy. No. I was going to show up at the hotel. I was going to catch them in the act. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if I would explode in rage, break down crying, or just stand there in shock. But I knew one thing. By the end of Friday night, Jessica's double life was going to be exposed. Friday couldn't come fast enough. Every minute leading up to it felt like torture. I went through the motions, woke up, got the kids ready, went to work, but inside, I was already at the Lancaster Inn, waiting to catch Jessica and Ryan in the act. I hadn't told anyone yet. I considered telling my best friend, Mike, but I knew he'd tell me to confront her right away. I needed proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So, I made a plan. Step 1. Book a room at the Lancaster Inn. I didn't want to look suspicious, so I booked a room 2 floors above the one Jessica and Ryan had reserved. It was under my name, no secrecy needed. I just needed access to the hotel. Step 2. Get a hidden camera. I ordered a small, wireless camera that could be disguised as a phone charger. It linked to my phone so I could watch in real time. If I could get into their room for even a minute, I'd have hard evidence. Step 3. Follow her to the hotel. I needed to confirm she was actually meeting Ryan and not just using the hotel for something else. As much as I hated to admit it, a tiny part of me still hoped there was an explanation. But by the time Friday rolled around, I knew better. Jessica was in a great mood all day. She was texting on and off, smiling at her phone, humming in the kitchen. When she got home from work, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "Hey, babe, don't wait up for me tonight, okay? This dinner might run late." I wanted to laugh. Lie to me one more time. She dressed up, nothing too fancy, just enough to make it look like a work function. A fitted black dress, light makeup, perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. She even wore heels. For Ryan. I played dumb. Have fun. She smiled, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door. I waited exactly 10 minutes before getting into my car. And then I followed her. I kept my distance on the drive. I already knew where she was going, but I didn't want to spook her. She wasn't in a hurry, probably texting Ryan the whole way. When she pulled into the Lancaster Inn parking lot, my hands tightened around the steering wheel. This was it. No more doubts. No more excuses. I parked a few spots away and watched. Jessica sat in her car for a minute, then grabbed her purse and got out. She wasn't looking around, wasn't nervous, she'd done this before. She walked inside. I gave it 5 minutes, then followed. The lobby was quiet, just a receptionist behind the desk who barely glanced at me. I went straight to the elevators, heart pounding. I already knew the room number. Jessica's calendar had it listed. Room 214. I rode the elevator up to my floor, then took the stairs back down to the second. I wanted to approach quietly, unseen. The hallway was empty. I stood in front of room 214, staring at the door. I could hear faint voices inside. My hands were shaking as I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I started recording audio. Then I knocked. Silence. Then, hurried whispers. Then, Jessica's voice. "Who is it?" I didn't say anything. I just knocked again. The door opened a crack, just enough for me to see her face, her wide, panicked eyes. And then I saw him behind her. Ryan. Shirt unbuttoned, looking like a deer caught in headlights. Jessica's face went pale. What are you doing here?" I smiled. The kind of smile that says, "I know everything." I was about to ask you the same thing. Ryan stepped forward like he was going to say something, but I held up my phone. "I'd think twice before talking, buddy. I've got everything recorded." Jessica's hands started shaking. "Please, let's just talk somewhere else." No, I said, voice calm but firm. We talk here. Now. She looked like she was about to cry. It's not what it looks like. I laughed. Don't insult me. Ryan cleared his throat. Look, man, maybe we should. I turned to him, eyes burning. You? You don't say a damn thing. Jessica looked between us, panicking. She tried to reach for my arm. Can we just go home and talk about this? Please. I pulled back. No, Jess. You don't get to go home and pretend everything's fine. You don't get to go back to our kids, to our house, to me, and act like this never happened. Her face crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't care. I wasn't the bad guy here. I turned to Ryan, who still looked like he wanted to run. Tell me something, Ryan. How long has this been going on? He hesitated. Too long. I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear him say it. Jessica sobbed. Please, stop. How long, Ryan? He exhaled. Then, in a voice so quiet I barely heard it. 3 years. The world went still. 3 years. I had been lied to for 3 years. Jessica collapsed onto the bed, sobbing into her hands. I just stood there, frozen. 3 years of my life. 3 years of being a good husband. A good father. A man who trusted his wife. Wasted. Ryan cleared his throat again. Look, man, I cut him off. You're going to shut the hell up now. You've done enough. I turned back to Jessica, my voice hollow. I want a divorce. She looked up, stunned. No, please. I took one last look at her. The woman I thought I knew. Then I turned around and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I don't remember the drive home. My hands were on the wheel, my eyes on the road, but my mind was a storm. Every red light, every street sign blurred in nothing. The only thing I could hear was Ryan's voice echoing in my head. 3 years. How had I been so blind? How had she looked me in the eyes, every single day, and pretended? Lied to me. Slept next to me. Kissed me. Told me she loved me. I parked in the driveway but didn't go inside. Instead, I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I want a divorce. The words had come out of my mouth like a reflex. But now, sitting here alone, the weight of them started to sink in. Divorce. It wasn't just a word, it was the end of everything. My marriage. My family as I knew it. My kids' stability. Liam and Emma. The thought of them nearly broke me. How was I going to tell them? How was I going to explain that their mom had shattered our family? I looked at my phone. Missed calls. Text from Jessica. Jessica, please come home. Please, let's talk. Jessica, I'll do anything. Just please don't leave like this. Jessica, don't do this to us. Jessica, please answer me. I turned the phone off. She was afraid now. Good. She wasn't afraid when she was sneaking around behind my back. She wasn't afraid when she was whispering, I love you to another man. Now, it was my turn to be in control. I finally went inside around midnight. The house was dark and silent. The kids were asleep. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. I could hear every little creak in the house, every gust of wind outside. The emptiness pressed down on me like a weight. For the first time in years, I felt alone. I thought about calling Mike, but what was I going to say? Hey man, my wife of 8 years has been cheating on me for 3 and is in love with some douchebag from her office. Thoughts? No. I had to deal with this myself. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet. I hadn't had a drink in a long time, but tonight, I needed it. I poured a glass and stared at my wedding photo on the wall. Jessica, smiling. Me, standing next to her, arm wrapped around her waist. The happiest day of my life. What a joke. I took the picture down. I should have smashed it, thrown it against the wall. Instead, I set it face down on the table. And then I drank. I woke up on the couch, my head pounding. I checked my phone. More messages from Jessica. But the one that stood out was from an unknown number. Unknown. Hey, man. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Ryan. I stared at the message, my fingers tightening around the phone. He had the nerve to text me? I didn't respond. Instead, I called a lawyer. It was time to end this. The moment I hung up with the lawyer, reality hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just some dramatic confrontation anymore. This was real. Divorce. Lawyers. Custody battles. Paperwork. Moving out. Splitting everything we built. And the worst part? My kids. I sat in the kitchen, my coffee untouched, scrolling through Jessica's unread messages. She had texted all night. Jessica, I know you're hurting, but we need to talk. Jessica, please don't just throw everything away like this. Jessica, think about the kids. Jessica, please come home so we can fix this. Jessica, I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what to do. I wasn't an idiot. She wasn't sorry because she loved me. She was sorry because she got caught. I looked at my lawyer's website. He had solid reviews, specialized in divorce, custody, and high-conflict cases. I didn't know if this would turn ugly, but I wasn't going to wait and find out. I took a deep breath and called his office. A receptionist picked up. James Parker's office. How can I help you? I need to file for divorce. Her voice softened. I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like to schedule a consultation with Mr. Parker? Yes. As soon as possible. She gave me an appointment for Monday morning. 2 days from now. 2 days felt like a lifetime. Around noon, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I opened the door, and there she was, Jessica. She looked awful. Puffy eyes, no makeup, hair a mess. Like she'd spent the night crying. Good. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. You really weren't going to answer me? I crossed my arms. What do you want, Jessica? Tears welled up in her eyes instantly. Please, don't do this. We can fix this. I'll do therapy. I'll quit my job. I'll cut off all contact with Ryan. Whatever you need. Just don't leave. I laughed. Actually laughed. Now you want to fix things? After 3 years of sneaking around? She flinched. I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose my family. You lost your family the second you chose him over us. She wiped her eyes, stepping forward. I was confused. No, I cut her off. You weren't confused. You were just selfish. She sniffled. Can we at least talk inside? I didn't move. No. We can talk in court. Her face twisted in panic. Court? You already called a lawyer. I nodded. Meeting him Monday. Jessica let out a shaky breath. So that's it? Just like that? You're giving up on us. I clenched my jaw. I didn't give up on anything, Jessica. You did. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. We stood there in silence. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. The mother of my children. And a complete stranger. She exhaled shakily. Please, don't do this to the kids. That made my blood boil. Don't you dare put this on me. I'm not the one who destroyed our family. Jessica looked like she was about to fall apart. I'll do anything, she whispered. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said the only thing I could. It's too late. And I shut the door in her face. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I barely slept the night before, running through every possible outcome in my head. Would Jessica fight me on custody? Would she try to take everything? Would she weaponize the kids against me? I walked into my lawyer's office feeling like I was about to war. James Parker was a sharp-looking guy in his late 40s, with graying hair and the kind of confidence that told me he'd seen every kind of messy divorce imaginable. He gestured for me to sit and got straight to the point. So, tell me what we're dealing with. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The late-night calls, the hidden affair, the hotel meetups, the 3 years of betrayal. James listened carefully, nodding. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is bad, he admitted. But not for you. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He steepled his fingers. Your wife committed marital misconduct. If you file first, you set the tone of the divorce. That gives you an advantage, especially with custody. Custody. My stomach clenched. I don't want her taking my kids away from me. James nodded. Here's the deal. Courts prioritize the best interest of the children. If we can prove you've been the stable parent while she's been sneaking around, you'll have a strong case for primary custody. Primary custody. The words hit me hard. I had been so focused on catching Jessica that I hadn't really thought about what came after. What are my options? I asked. James pulled out a notepad. You can go for joint custody, which means you split time with the kids. But if you want to fight for sole custody, we'll need solid proof that Jessica's actions negatively affect them. I hesitated. I didn't want to rip my kids away from their mother, but at the same time, could I really trust Jessica? James must have seen the conflict on my face because he asked, how do you think she'll react when she sees the divorce papers? I didn't have to think. She'll lose it. She'll beg, cry, try to manipulate me. But the second she realizes I'm serious, she'll get nasty. James nodded like he'd heard that 1,000 times before. Then be ready. Because once she realizes she can't guilt you into staying, she's going to fight. By the end of the meeting, I had signed the official divorce petition. James would file it by the end of the day, and Jessica would be served within the next 48 hours. It was happening. I drove home in a daze. Every time I glanced at the passenger seat, I imagined Jessica sitting there, smiling like nothing was wrong. How the hell had we ended up here? Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown. I heard you're going through with the divorce. If you need to talk, I'm here. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. Ryan. The absolute audacity of this guy. I didn't reply. I blocked the number instead. He wasn't worth a response. 2 days later, Jessica called me while I was at work. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. And again. By the fourth call, I finally picked up. What? I said flatly. Her voice was shaking. You actually did it. I didn't say anything. You filed for divorce, she continued, voice cracking. You had me served at work, Ethan. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I clenched my jaw. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that more humiliating than finding out my wife has been cheating on me for 3 years? She let out a shaky breath. Ethan, please. We can. There's no we anymore, Jessica. Silence. Then, the shift I had been waiting for. Her voice went cold. So that's it? You're just throwing me away. I laughed bitterly. Throwing you away? You threw me away, Jessica. You threw away our family, our marriage, everything. You did this, not me. She exhaled sharply. So, what now? You think you're going to take my kids away from me? I felt that. The anger. The fight. This was the moment James had warned me about. I'm not taking them away, I said evenly. I'm fighting for custody. Because unlike you, I actually put my family first. Jessica screamed into the phone before hanging up. And just like that, the battle had officially begun. The moment Jessica hung up, I knew I had crossed into dangerous territory. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't begging. She was angry. And an angry, cornered Jessica? That was the version of her I had been dreading. I had barely set my phone down when the messages started rolling in. Jessica, you're not taking my kids from me. Jessica, you want a war? Fine. You're going to regret this. Jessica, I'll make sure the courts see you for who you really are. I stared at the last one for a long time. Who I really am. What the hell did that mean? The next morning, I got a call from Mike, my best friend. Dude, he said, his voice tight. I just got off the phone with Jessica. My stomach twisted. What? Why? She called me. Said she wanted to clear the air about the divorce. I gritted my teeth. And Mike hesitated. She's telling people you were emotionally neglectful. That you checked out of the marriage, and she had no choice but to find someone who actually cared about her. I laughed bitterly. So now I'm the bad guy? Yeah, Mike said. And that's not all. She's telling people you have anger issues. That you might not be a safe parent. I clenched my jaw. Of course. She was setting the stage for the custody fight. Making it look like she was the stable one, the responsible one, while I was the angry, unstable husband who drove her into Ryan's arms. Typical. Do you believe her? I asked, my voice low. Mike scoffed. Hell no. But you need to watch your back, man. She's playing dirty. I already knew that. That night, when I picked up Liam and Emma from school, I noticed something was off. Liam barely spoke, just stared out the car window. Emma, usually a chatterbox, was quiet too. Everything okay, guys? I asked, glancing at them in the rearview mirror. Liam shifted uncomfortably. Mom said you're mad at her. I gripped the steering wheel. Here we go. Emma's little voice piped up. She said you don't love her anymore. I took a slow, deep breath. I wasn't going to put them in the middle of this. Listen, I said gently. Mom and I are going through a tough time. But no matter what, I love you both more than anything. That will never change. Liam looked down at his hands. Are you mad at Mom? I paused. I couldn't lie. But I also couldn't put my kids in the crossfire. I'm hurt, I admitted. But that's between me and her. It doesn't change how much we both love you. Emma nodded, satisfied with that answer. Liam, though? He was still distant. I knew Jessica had gotten to him. She was already planting seeds. The next day, James called me. You're not going to like this, he said. Jessica filed for full custody. I nearly dropped my phone. What? She's arguing that you have anger issues and an unstable home environment. She's trying to make the case that the kids are better off with her full-time. I laughed coldly. She's the one who lied. She's the one who cheated. How the hell does she think she's winning this? James sighed. Because she's smart. She knows that courts favor the mother unless there's solid evidence against her. I rubbed my temples. So what do? We fight, James said simply. We gather character witnesses, document everything, and prove that you're just as much a parent as she is. I exhaled. She's trying to make me look like a bad dad. Yes, James confirmed. And if you're not careful, the courts will believe her. Jessica wanted war. She had it. I wasn't going to roll over and let her take my kids. I wasn't going to let her rewrite history and paint herself as the victim. So I started preparing. I documented everything. Every interaction. Every call. Every text. I gathered witnesses. Mike. My coworkers. Even teachers at Liam and Emma's school. People who knew the truth. I stayed calm. No outbursts. No yelling. No giving Jessica ammo to use against me. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd win by playing smart. Because I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for my kids. I walked into the courthouse with my lawyer by my side. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. This was it. The moment where everything would be laid out. The lies, the betrayal, the fight for my kids. Jessica was already inside, sitting next to her lawyer. She looked different. Not the broken, crying mess from before. No, she was composed. Dressed in light colors to appear innocent. But I saw through it. She glanced at me. No emotion. Just cold determination. This wasn't my wife anymore. This was my enemy. The judge entered, and the hearing started. Jessica's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a neglectful, emotionally unstable father who was too focused on revenge to be a responsible parent. I sat there, jaw clenched, as she played the victim. How hard it had been for her. How she only cheated because she felt unloved. How she was the one who had always put the kids first. And then she hit me with the real bombshell. Your Honor, we have reason to believe that Mr. Walker's anger issues may pose a risk to the children's emotional well-being. My breath caught. Jessica sniffled for effect. He's always been short-tempered. He bottles things up, and then one day he just explodes. The judge frowned. Has there been any documented incidents of aggression? Jessica's lawyer shook her head. Not documented, but... Then it's speculation, my lawyer cut in sharply. And Your Honor, if we're dealing in speculation, let's talk about Mrs. Walker's double life. I sat back as James took control. James tore Jessica apart. He presented the affair evidence. Emails, text logs, the hotel receipts. The secret phone calls. Recordings of her whispering, I love you to Ryan. The 3-year timeline. Proving this wasn't some emotional mistake. It was a long-term, calculated betrayal. Jessica's face drained of color. James pressed forward. She wasn't prioritizing her kids. She was prioritizing another man. The judge looked at her. Mrs. Walker, do you deny the affair? Jessica opened her mouth, but for the first time, she had no words. Silence. The courtroom felt it. She had lost the moral high ground. Now came the real fight. Jessica's lawyer tried to pivot. Regardless of the affair, Mrs. Walker has been the primary caregiver. The children need stability. James was ready. Your Honor, let's talk about stability. He pulled out a list of character witnesses, teachers, family friends, even Liam's soccer coach. And every single one testified to the same thing. I was just as involved in my kids' lives as Jessica was. I was a loving, stable father. I had no history of aggression. Jessica squirmed as each person shot down her lies. Then James played the final card. He handed the judge a transcript of Jessica's messages to Ryan. One line sealed her fate. Just a few more weeks, and we'll finally be free. James turned to the judge. She wasn't thinking about the kids. She was planning to leave her husband and destroy their home. The judge exhaled. He had seen enough. When the decision came down, I held my breath. 50-50 custody. It wasn't sole custody, but it was fair. Jessica had tried to paint me as unfit. Had tried to rip my kids from me. And she failed. The court saw through her lies. I won. Not in the way I originally wanted, but in the only way that mattered. My kids weren't being taken from me. Jessica looked at me one last time as we left the courtroom. This time, she was the one who had lost everything. And I walked out free. The next few months were an adjustment. I got my own place. Small, but peaceful. I focused on my kids. Made sure they knew I wasn't going anywhere. Jessica struggled. She lost a lot of friends when the truth came out. Even Ryan dumped her after the stress of the case. And me? I healed. Slowly, day by day. One night, Liam asked me, Dad, are you happy? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Then I smiled. I think I will be. Because for the first time in a long time, I was free.